What's up, everybody? Jason Swenk here, and I have an amazing episode with Brian, who runs an eight-figure agency, and we're going to talk about what it's like to run operations for an eight-figure agency. Because I know a lot of you are trying to get to the summit, to get to that next level, and so we're going to dive into this in this episode. So let's get into it. Hey, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. So tell us briefly who you are and what do you guys do?
Of course. So my name is Brian R. Johnson. I throw that in there because there's a lot of Brian Johnsons out in the world. So, yeah, Brian Johnson out of, I'm based near Austin, Texas. I am currently traveling on the West Coast with my family. But so I am in the Amazon space, running an agency, actually co-running an agency that handles multi-million dollar sellers, brands that are brick and mortar brands, as well as sellers who sell on the Amazon sales channel. And so we handle all their advertising and quite a bit of their marketing that goes into moving more product for them. So that's kind of the
Awesome.
short version of, of what I do.
That's awesome. And so, why would you partner with someone else named Brian? It's got to be
He
so
actually
confusing.
recruited
That's the
me.
first question I got for you.
Yeah. He actually recruited me because he tracked me down because I happened to be I was the subject matter expert in my subject, in the advertising space within Amazon, the niche within the niche, right? And he tracked me down a number of years ago and hired me to consult for his own account and says, okay, you obviously know a lot more than you think you do. I want to partner with you and work on, we originally came out with, because I had already created like a community and software. And he says, okay, next thing you need to do is produce, a professional training course. So we did that. And that eventually, evolved into the agency because everybody said like, you guys obviously know what you're doing. You got a huge success record. Just do it for me. It's like, okay, obviously that kind of begs the need for the agency level service, which is, as you already know, a huge learning curve by itself.
Yeah. Well, I love how you guys. I didn't know how you got your start that way, and that's actually a really good. Thinking about a lot of other agencies in the mastermind and people I've worked with. Some of the most successful ones have actually started from a training course that people like want
Yeah.
to know how to do something, and then they're like, just do it for me, and then it just kind of takes
I,
off.
well, I got to tell you, Jesse, the I've created a lot of my own competitors
Of course.
because of my
Me
training.
too.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just kind of the byproduct of, just giving to the community and just, sticking your neck out there and just saying, look, here's what people need to know. If that creates competition, so be it.
Well, and the thing people have to realize, and it took me, oh man, and sometimes I still try to figure it out, right? Like literally, people, you can put out everything that you're doing, but it will never be the same as you because we're all unique. We have all have our own personalities, and we're constantly always. I know I am. I'm always thinking of new stuff. So even if you
Yeah.
copied my
Yeah.
old
Yeah.
stuff, I'm like, oh crap, that stuff was 2 years ago. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you got to keep moving. You got to keep innovating. That's something where I've done that before. I did that in the software side where if I didn't innovate within 6 months, everybody caught up to me. I was like, oh, okay, hold on. They're on your taillights, constantly. And so if you're not continually moving, if you're not continually innovating, then you're gonna get passed.
you know. So let's talk a little bit about the operations, right? So in operations of a bigger agency, let's talk about kind of the structure that you guys have within the
Right.
agency, because a lot of people listening, some people, or most people are trying to crack the eight-figure mark. Some people are just trying to crack the $1 million mark as well, right? So talk about the different stages that you guys have gone through on an operations front, because usually most people I bring on, they're always kind of the ones doing sales and marketing and that kind of stuff. So I'd love to get your
Yeah.
perspective on the ops.
So yeah, so the relationship that my partner and I had was that he was the sales and marketing guy, right? He had all the Russell Brunson experience and all the funnels and the, the two commas and all that kind of stuff, right? And he obviously had that side of it. I had the technical knowledge. I was the subject matter expert, and so we kind of blended those two together. Now, just because you've got sales and marketing and you've got expertise, you can fill the roles, doesn't mean you can execute on those roles. People need to recognize that. It's like you need to recognize when you need to step out of your own way, because you might be holding the company back because you think you can do everything, which is, in my opinion, foolish. But I only know that because of hindsight, not because I didn't think the same thing when I was there. And so certainly the first year, um, it was it was pretty easy because of the reputation I had built up over the years. It was pretty easy, actually, from the sales and marketing standpoint. We just had to let people know that, hey, we were available, and we got out there. That's not a common challenge, I think, among a lot of agency owners who are like, "When I have this expertise, but nobody knows who I am," because they didn't spend years and years and years to become an overnight success. you know. Um, they didn't put in the time in order to build up a reputation in a community and an audience and those kinds of things, to then translate that into, okay, here are my leads. So the part the it was the easy part was, like, we had new clients that were coming in. The problem we had is that we didn't have everything pulled out of my head as far as the processes, as far as, like, here's the checklist, here's, so that somebody, I can hand it off to a team of people, and they can just execute, and they can execute consistently. Okay, so is that consistent execution of a laid out plan wasn't there, and so we stumbled. We hit our face on the wall. I mean, whatever analogy you want to use on this, it was a struggle. It caused a lot of pain. It caused a lot of tension between my partner and I. And so, um, well, I recognize, like, first of all, I had to get some kind of documentation. I was trying to, in my head, I had, okay, I can solve 100% of all problems on Amazon when it comes to, advertising. But really, what the agency team needed was, they need like 50% of that, Brian, and you need to get that documented. And you're the only one who has that knowledge. And so once I got that first iteration, I guess, of the process, the documentation, the checklist out, then they looked at it and said, well, can we do it this way better? It's like, then they start innovating on their own, because now they have control. And you kind of like, well, for me, I had to let go of the I guess the feeling that I wanted to say, no, 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 we can do all these other things. And I'm going, and it wasn't until we acquired another agency, brought in somebody who had a lot more experience on the operations side, and said, okay, we're going to actually have you run operations. That's when we made a huge shift between here's all of the knowledge that we can do, here's all the things we could do, versus here's all the things we need to do in order to run profitably as an agency and consistently as an agency, because that's what our clients expect of us.
Yeah, I see so many times, people for the longest time they go, and like, I'm glad you explained it. Be like, look, I can just do it. Like, I can solve anything. Just give it to me. And you pull it back from people, and you're really crippling them. Like, you're giving like
Yeah.
this huge crutch that if you take away, they're screwed. But I love how you put it. Going, if I could just get them 50% there, and it's kind of what I call like, and also learn. I'm not delegating tasks. I'm delegating outcomes. And like, when you learn
Yeah.
that, that is so freeing, because I love the story that you were like, hey, I gave them 50%. And then they were like, well, let me innovate on top of this to make it better.
Yeah.
And then how much pressure did that take off your shoulders?
Oh, it was because I was in a state of, full on just overwhelm, where you wake up and you're kind of like, you wake up panicked, like, oh, what do I need to do today? It's like, oh, I mean, there was conversations where I had where, um,
Did
yeah,
you have a full head of
the
hair
level
like
of stress
me
was huge.
before?
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately that was, yeah, that was gone a long time ago.
Very
So
good.
yeah, Yeah, it caused a lot of stress for sure. Of course, that kind of stuff, it translates back to your family, and sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't even recognize that, and we do need to, because it creates an echo stress, an echo tension from your family, and that's exactly not what any of us want. But I think it's a byproduct of trying to take on too much, trying to not hand the reins off, and mostly because I had enough ego there. I was like, well, I'm the one who knows all these things. And what it took me, God, it probably took me a good year and a half before it finally sunk in, like that long, is we don't need your 100% of knowledge, Brian. We need your 50% of what's executable, and consistently, and applies to everybody. Not all these fringe examples of, here's an exception, or here's the advanced tactic, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, that's all great and everything. We'll pull you in when we need that. But to run the agency, you got to get that. It's Pareto. It's even 20%, of that, you know, is what we need in order to have a functioning agency that doesn't just burn through clients and staff. you know.
Yeah. So what was the mindset set shift? Because I remember when I transitioned from an owner to the CEO, there was a huge, like, for a while I was depressed because I was like, all right, I'm not needed anymore. Like, um,
Right.
and I did have an ego back then, and I was like, no, I know more than everybody, which is the
Right.
dumbest thing. Like, literally, after I learned what I learned, I was like, man, I want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah. Well, and we think that it's like, oh, well, I'm so clever, I'm going to hire people smarter than me. But ultimately, if you're the one who came in with the knowledge, came in with the experience, the tendency, certainly I experienced the same thing as you and many others, is we still have a certain amount of control. We're just like, I'm not controlling. Well, yeah, you kind of are. When it really comes down to it, because this is your baby, this is your expertise, and if somebody comes in or a team comes in and says, "Hey, we could execute on this better than what you taught us," you're kind of like, "Wait, what? That's not possible." And it's like, it took me the first 2 years to finally step back. And when I finally actually stepped back and said, okay, I'm going to completely let go of, like, one of the things I did recently, um, late last year, is I completely stepped away from the software that I had invented years ago for this space. And that was extremely difficult because that was my baby, you know. And so while I still have plenty of value to the team and to clients and to, audience, as far as, hey, here's the latest tactic, and, the advanced tactic, here's the exception, you know, awesome. I can step in and do coaching at that point, but I am not the thought leader within I might be a thought leader within the community, but I'm not necessarily a thought leader within the agency. And that's exactly what we should get to, because if you're that one person that gets hit by a bus and the whole agency fails, that's your fault. That is your fault because
Yeah,
you let it happen.
yeah.
And at this point, like, I could disappear, and honestly, this agency will continue to grow and succeed because of the teams that we have in place, because of the knowledge base that we have in place, and the pool of experience, and the level of collaboration within the culture of our agency is very important.
Well, you mentioned something important there too. Is your role really kind of shifted too from coaching and really kind of coaching the team, and then as I found that we stepped into that. Well, now you're not as emotionally attached to a lot of the decisions that they may have, where then you can
Yeah.
actually help them out a lot more. Whether, being from when you were coding, I used to be the world's worst coder just because I outsourced
Me
everything
too. Yeah.
in college, right? So, but that's why I could lead development teams because I wasn't emotionally attached because I didn't care about the syntax. Like, literally, I was like, I just
Yeah.
understand the logic that needs to
Right.
happen. And
You could design it. You saw the direction it needed to go, but it's like, yeah, don't make me code because I'm just going to slow you down.
oh yeah, I'm like, there was no semicolon there. Like, I used to have people sitting on my shoulder and be like, they'd yell at me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't give a shit about your stupid semicolon. You hire some joker that wants to put the damn semicolon there. I don't give a shit. Like I would
Right.
get so mad, and that's when we voluntarily or maybe forced out of Arthur Anderson to to start this. So, but all
Yeah.
good. What let's switch to kind of the team, like building a team around you, right? Like you talked
Right.
about uh, going through a lot of people, right? Probably because you were maxing them out. And we talked about, that 50%. What other things did you do, and what type of people? Was there a different type of people that you looked for as well?
Well, so the initially it wasn't a case of like we had a lot of we didn't it wasn't like we had a lot of turnover as far as our staff. We had a lot of people who were stuck with us for a long time. It was more of a case of the client turnover, and that creates stress.
Mm,
But ultimately there's a couple of things. One is, again, the training that I put out there trained not only some competitors but also some of my best employees as well. And so they had started their own practice, or they applied it to their own business, and so they already knew of me. And so when they saw that we were hiring, they're like going, "Ah, that seems even better, because now I can actually get in with the team that I have respect for." And that's the best way to interview. You're like going, "Oh yeah," it's like, they could be, they could be a fan of whatever we've taught in the past or whatever, but really it's like, what value can you add, what experience do you have coming in? And we continue to get that to this day. Is we have people that we have to turn away and say, okay, get a little bit more experience before you come in, because our bar is pretty high. But that also helps us to hire smarter people than us, people who have got their own ideas, have their own experience executing on my training, and saying, hey, I'm going to do something a little different. And that's totally cool. They don't have to conform to everything, because I want them to contribute to a growing, innovating team and culture, rather than, because otherwise I would just hire a bunch of VAs that were task based out of the Philippines or something, and just say, like, okay, they're going to do it, but I have to manage each and every one of them. I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't want to have to manage every single person. I want to have people who manage their own teams, and within that team they've got a culture of collaboration and support and innovation, and they get the job done, and then we celebrate their success every single day, every single week. They charge themselves. I don't need to be constantly propping them up. That is a drain on me, and that's
yep.
something that, once we have, I'm not sure what our total head count is at the moment. I want to say it's probably north of 60, probably. um, but it started out where we were just hiring people who were specialized in, here's the first service we provide, and we started building out teams like that. And we had a very low employee to client ratio starting out. And part of that was like, oh, we're boutique, and we're very specialized, and we're expensive, and that kind of stuff. And that was all great and everything, until you got to the point where, like, going, okay, we can't grow, we can't scale, because we can't find the people that we need, because all these other competitors that we created or popped up in the environment, they're also out there recruiting. And so then you start having a knowledge glut. You train, so that's when you have to really refine your training and make sure that each employee has access right from day one of the onboarding, and they can shadow somebody, and they can learn, how do we do things, where do I get the information, so that they're not sitting around on their hands going, like, I don't know who to ask or where to go. That you might as well just shoot them and send them out the door, because they're gone,
Yeah.
if that's the case.
Yeah. I love too that, and it sounds like you have your employees go through the ones that haven't started. Like, I love how you recruit from the training course for the
Sure.
employees. Like, that's brilliant. That's worked for a lot of my clients in the past. They were like, we just take the best, and we like, you want to do this, but you don't want to do it on your own. Like, we'll sell
Right.
everything. So that's brilliant. But do you also, and I also like how you have, it's a training program for them to follow the process,
Yeah.
going through it. Um, lastly, let's talk about what is the kind of the requirement for bringing in people that will lead their own team. I think some people listening are struggling with that, rather than going, like you were saying, hire in the Philippines.
Right. Well, I mean, we look at other agencies not from their book of business, not for the clients or the revenue that they have, but the people they have. And so that's the acquihire model, where you basically are looking for like what kind of talent do you have in your company that is worth us investing in or acquiring. And so I think that was probably one of the early best decisions we made is we picked up an agency that um, like I said, eventually became our, director of operations and then eventually our COO. Um, because the owner of that agency had so much. They weren't sales and marketing. They did it, but their best skill set, their best talent was everything has got to be a process. It doesn't exist unless it's in a process, and then everything needs to be compared against what does that provide as far as a profit margin, or a revenue per employee, and what's the efficiency of it. You've got to have somebody who looks at it from an engineering mindset like that, but can look at it along with the numbers, with the financing to say this is correct, this is not correct. We need to change something here and constantly just be quite aggressive. You can't have somebody who's running operations who's a passive, like, hey, I'm a team player, all that kind of stuff. No, you need a driver. You need somebody who knows how to, like, how do we make this into a machine? Let somebody else worry about sales and marketing and HR and whatever.
Yeah, I love it. I love that that they said or that you said it doesn't exist unless it's kind of written down. Like I
Yeah,
remember one guest was saying we didn't do it unless we communicated it several times to the client. Right? It's kind of that same
right.
mentality. I love it. Well, Brian, this has all been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the audience?
There's two things that I do. Yeah, there's two things that we do within our agency that I think that give us an advantage. One of them is um, what we call a daily huddle, which is basically like like a 10 to 15-minute call with all hands on a Zoom call. We literally have everybody on a Zoom call for like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes every morning. And we don't get into the business. We basically say like, hey, who had a win yesterday? And people go around, like half a dozen people will say, hey, I had, this win and that win, whatever. Um, and then we say, okay, are there any critical issues that everybody needs to know about? Okay, nope. All right, who got caught being awesome? That's something I learned from a CEO coach. Who got caught being awesome? They shout each other out to build each other up and say, this person helped me succeed yesterday or last, this week or something like that. And every single time we do that every single weekday, and we leave there and we're charged up and people feel good and people look forward to the calls. It's not a drag on them because they know it's like, hey, you know what, I might get shot out because I did something awesome yesterday and I really helped somebody, and I get a little kudos, I get a little bump, from the group. And everybody gets to see that there's a collaborative environment, especially when you've got new people who come in their first week and they see that, they're like, oh yeah, I landed in the right place. And that turns out great.
I love that. I've never, that's kind of what we do on our mastermind calls. Like, and a lot of times what I'll do on my coaching calls, I'll always talk about what's your past win since we last chatted. Because you
Yeah,
have to, a lot of times when they're reaching out to a coach or they're coming to their meeting, they want to solve a problem and they're not in that resourceful state. They're in that stress state. And when you switch it to something positive, it switches that state to make them more resourceful in order to figure
right.
out. But also, too, I love the what was it? Who did something awesome for you?
Who got caught being awesome.
I
Yeah,
never
it,
thought
it
about that.
feels
I'm so
it
borrowing
sounds
that.
cheesy. Yeah, when we first did it, it felt a little bit cheesy, but we've done it for at least 2 years now, and it's like it's expected, and people love it. And on Friday, we usually like try to bump it up, and we'll play some funny videos or something like that, and just get people just excited. It's like, hey, it's Friday and it's fun, So those kinds of things are certainly great.
Brilliant.
If we have time, I have a second one too, if you'd
Go
like.
for it, man.
So the second one is I will go through and I will talk to employees that, starting obviously with the people, it's like, okay, I don't want to lose this person, right? So I want to make sure that they are, firing on all cylinders, pointing the same direction. They're happy and they're fired up to wake up each day and do the job. But there's a couple of things that I'll ask, and that is, um, what is it that energizes you in a day? What tasks do you do each day that give you energy, that build you up, that you're happy about, that you're excited about doing? Now, on the flip side of that, which ones drain your energy? Which ones do you try to avoid? That kind of stuff. Because there's somebody else on the team that is excited about the tasks that drain you. Let's shift some things to make sure that every single day you're like going, this is going to be another awesome day. This is cool. A lot of times as an agency owner, we want to, we look at the money and we think it's like, oh, well, I need to give people, a bump, a little bonus, a little more money. It's like, no, just reduce the drag on their life so that they're not drained, so they're happy, their family is happy, they feel energized every single day. And you can do that simply by saying, you know what, this particular thing is part of your job description, but if it's not right for you and somebody else over here is excited about doing that, then let's move it over, and then both of you are happy.
Oh, yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. I remember when I would bring in project managers because I originally used to manage projects, right? And I hated it. Like literally, I didn't want to talk to clients ever. And I'd go to them in the interview process. I'd be like, "Hey, you're going to sit in this job for about a year and a half. It's going to suck, and then I'll move you up." Well, what I
Right.
realized was some project managers love repetition and they love
Yeah.
like the same thing over and over again. And they're like, I just want to stay here. Like, why are you pushing me to the next? And I portrayed like I figured like everyone's like me, like everybody wants to move up. So I
Yeah.
love that you go to them all the time. Like, which one you get a lot of energy, kind of like looking on an iPhone battery, right? Which one drains you? Because I
Yeah.
do. I'm coming up in the mastermind. I'm going to talk about like auditing your time and really getting rid of those things that just suck your energy. Because then, if you
Yeah.
have no energy going into a meeting, like especially from the top, like don't you realize like if you come in a bad mood, your whole team and it just propagates all the way
It
down.
does. Yeah, absolutely does. Yeah, I love the idea of time auditing. We've done that a few times, and it's one of those things that needs to be done more often. It feels like micromanagement. It's like, no, no, this is not for me. This is for you to know what you're doing, for you to recognize that you spend 4 hours every day doing something that is painful to you. It's like, that's not correct. Don't continue to do that.
Yeah, we had a mastermind member that always would talk to their employees every week and going, they wouldn't ask the energy level, but they always said every time we chatted, hey, if you ever have anything that you do in the agency that puts you off, that I guess they maybe said drains your energy, like literally come to me and we'll solve it right away. Because what
Yeah.
happens a lot of times with your team, if they're constantly that way and they don't feel that they can come to you and you're not constantly saying that, they're going to go get another job. And then if you're
Yeah,
trying to save
exactly.
them, it's already
It's too
too
late.
late.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you could broadcast that out and just say, "Hey, for everybody, that's probably a good idea." But ultimately, it's the one-on-one conversations is where you get people to be honest with you.
Always.
And they're like going, "Well, there's this one thing, maybe, since nobody else is listening, I'm not going to come to you. It's like you've got an open door policy, but like I still don't feel comfortable. I still feel like you're up on a pedestal somewhere. It's like, no, I don't want to be on a pedestal. I want you to seriously come to me, but they don't.
Yeah.
So go to them."
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. Awesome. This has all been amazing. What's the website people can go check out the agency and maybe even check out the training too?
Yeah, well, so the focus on the agency, I guess, is it's canopymanagement.com. We do focus in on the Amazon space, but love to see how if you kind of want to see as far as like how we lay out, how we present our team, and our success stories and that kind of stuff. It's a good little format that we're using. It works for us. Yeah, that's canopymanagement.com. So that's our flagship.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot as well as all of you. So make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast and leave a comment. And if you guys want to be surrounded by amazing agency owners on a consistent basis, I would love for you guys to go check out the Digital Agency Elite. This is the mastermind that we put together, put the most amazing agencies together that are sharing what's working for them right now, and then be able to see the things that you might not be able to see in your trajectory. So until next time, have a swank day.